So today I'm going to talk to you basically about 5 things, or I guess 4 things, and then I'm going to open it up for questions before I turn it over to my partners at Del Mar College. First we're going to talk about procurement in general, what it looks like for the city, a brief overview of our processes and responsibilities that we have in order to do that. The next thing we'll go through is the different types of procurement. So we release a variety of different types of solicitations based off of department need, schedules, urgency, and different pieces like that. And so I'll kind of go through a high-level overview of what that looks like. Then we'll get very briefly into the nitty-gritty on the supplier portal, which is the actual instrument that we use to solicit all of our goods and services. Construction's a little different, and we'll talk about that later, but the actual experts, my engineering department, is going to be here in the back of the room. And so if you have, if you're a contractor or you want to bid on construction work, they're going to be here to be able to talk about that process, because this is just a little different portal. But the decision making and the idea behind it all is very similar. So I think you'll still be able to gain quite a bit from today. And then I want to talk about local preference, which is very important to our city council. And I want you guys to know that emphasis, because what we're really trying to do is make sure that the city can award additional points to those who are local businesses, because we want to keep our tax dollars local. That's one of City Council's directive and goals for my office, and we've enacted that through policy. And so I'll go through that, and then, like I said, I'll open it up for questions. So let's talk introduction to city procurement real quick. So my role as the procurement office for the city is we're the centralized purchasing arm of the city's branch. Now, the departments identify the need, but when they have a scope, when they've developed, whatever it is that they need, they come to my group, and my group is the one that puts out the solicitation. And we look at all of the contributing factors, what statutory requirements does this specific procurement have, because the government has laid out a series of laws that govern the way we're able to procure certain items. And they bring that to my group. My group is also there to help them with what we call spot purchasing or point purchasing, where departments have a certain latitude under $50,000, which is the biggest threshold the city has, where any solicitation over $50,000 has to go for council consideration on top of any of the other things that we talk about. And so that's what my group organizes. But what we don't do is we're not the end users. So, I field calls all the time from small businesses who are like, hey, we want to come do business with the city. And I'll do my best to put you in touch with the people who actually make those business decisions. Like, you're like, I have a service that I can provide and it's really valuable, or I have a product that's really good and you need it. And I believe that that's probably true, but I'm not the guy who gets to make those decisions, as I'm not the operating department. And so I thought it'd be very important today to bring you guys in to talk about this, but to also give you guys access to those direct line employees who make those business decisions. So in the back of the room, when we're finished, there'll be a little networking opportunity for both amongst yourself, but also to mingle with city staff and talk about all the questions you might have about the types of services they procure. So that brings us to, what does the city buy? And so the city buys a lot. We have over 30 different separate lines of business. Everything from utilities, public safety, internal services, we have some external service departments, and then some that just directly serve the community. And so, we're buying everything. I think in my next slide I say from zoologists to artwork. And we buy everything. We need services, anything that the community needs, the city needs, that's what's going to come through us. And so, like I said, if you look up there and you think one or two of those departments may have a service or a product that you might fit a need for, this is going to be your opportunity to be able to talk with them, to make those connections, to provide them information, to exchange business cards, or at least talk to them about what's coming up. I'm going to do a shameless plug right now for some packets that we have that we were trying to hand out when you guys came here, but if you did not get one, we do have some packets that will be at the procurement table that are kind of what we call our new vendor information packet. And in the packet is a forecast of our upcoming procurements. Now, these are usually the major ones. The departments have much smaller purchases that don't take as much planning time, and so those will come online whenever they come online, and that can happen very quickly. But the major procurements we know about. We're kind of planning them. We're in the pre-planning stages, and so we have a forecasted list of what's going to be coming out in the next few months, and that's in the packet, as well as an instruction guide for how to sign up on our supplier portal and how to utilize our supplier portal. And that's the other great reason we have this partnership with our Del Mar College Apex Accelerator, is that they're here to be able to help you guys with technical assistance and help you register and do those different things. And they'll get up and speak after me, so I'm not going to steal their spotlight on what they do. But just know that there are resources available to you at no cost to help you understand how to participate, how to sign up, how to create a statement of qualifications or experience depending on the type of solicitation that goes out. So we kind of separate our purchases into three categories. And so we talk about goods, services, and then again, I said construction, because construction's kind of the odd one out here. We do that through separate lines, and that involves quite a bit of engineering oversight. We have our chief engineer here today, but he's the guy that gets to make those calls on the construction projects. But in terms of goods and services, those are the two that primarily funnel through my division. And so let's talk about what does the volume look like. So the city spends approximately $500 million annually on specific purchases or capital projects. And so it's usually about a 70-30 split. So we're looking at about $350 million in the capital budget in a given year, and $150 million in an operating budget. So the city is buying a lot. Now, a major contributing factor to how a procurement is done has to do with the type of funding, or what we call the color of money. Federal funds have sometimes stricter regulations on the way that we're able to procure or spend it, and state funding sometimes has the similar or the same requirements. And then we also have our local requirements, because I have some governing ordinances that take place that City Council has passed that we have to make sure we follow. So those are kind of I'm trying to provide you the lens that we walk through whenever we're doing a procurement. So just to kind of illustrate that again, a department will come to me with a good or service, and the first thing that we have to do is we have to look and say, okay, well, what is the funding source? Is this coming out of the general fund, which are generally unrestricted dollars, or is this coming out of a grant fund? And that grant, was it granted from the local level or the federal level? Is it money that came from revenues that's also unrestricted, or is it from an enterprise fund? Those restrictions all tie into the decisions that get made for how we release the solicitation or how we procure something. Then we break it down further and say, okay, does this fall into what category? Is this a professional service? Professional services have the Procurement Act of Texas was passed several years ago, and the Procurement Act of Texas defines what they consider to be certain professional services. And if you're going to procure certain professional services, they provide you a guideline for how you do it. So there's no deviation, which it's a good bill. It was designed to protect architects, doctors, and engineers from having to compete on a dollar amount, and instead make it a qualification based. Are they the most qualified? Because nobody wants the low bid doctor. No offense, but nobody does. And then we separate it into non-professional services, which are governed a little bit more loosely. And so that kind of flows through. And then, of course, if it's construction, and then we're talking about whether it's a capital construction or if it's non-capital. And I know that I'm not going to split the hairs there with you guys, but essentially, there are some components that don't need engineering. It might be, minor rehab, re-roofing. Sometimes you don't have to redo some of these things, and so there isn't engineering involved, but it's still a construction item. And so those kind of go in. And then whether or not it's a good, and so those are kind of the lens that comes through and filter. And so then I get to then take whatever they gave me after run down that channel, and then I have to look and say, okay, well, what are the laws governing the procurement? And so we have, like I said, federal laws, which the federal government likes to change its mind a lot. And so every time they provide money in the form of a grant, the individual grant might have its own requirements separate from federal requirements, in addition to federal requirements. Or the other component there is they might say, we're going to waive all federal requirements and allow the local municipality to decide whatever their state allows. And so that's why sometimes you may see something go out one year a certain way and another year a different way, but we're all trying to work within the window that we have given by the grant or the governing body at that point. And then we have state law. The state law is very consistent with our local ordinances. In fact, most of our local ordinances just build on the state law. Sometimes it's a chance for city council to be more specific or more intentional about the way that a law was written. And then, like I said, our local ordinances, one of which is our local preference ordinance, which is support of allowing my office to apply points to local businesses. So when we talk procurement, we also talk about decentralized and centralized procurements. Decentralized procurements are those spot purchases I talked about earlier that departments are able to make. And so they kind of have a window on here. So the state allows us to make any spot purchase under $3,000 without having to go through any procurement. So if we're in the need of some piece of equipment that you sell, or maybe it's a very small service contract for a one-time need, then the city has the ability to enter into whether a service agreement or a contract or just a spot purchase without having to go through my office, without having to make sure that we're checking all the regulatory issues. Now, there are some other laws that apply to them, and my departments know they can't do something called separate sequential purchasing, which are against the rules, but you don't need to know that. You just need to know that they can do that. And then we kind of have the category where I call the above $3,000 but less than $50,000. And that category of purchasing, we have built-in requirements. And so my policies state that they have to have 3 price quotes, so that they can't just go to their favorite vendor or someone that they have experience with. They have to go out to the market. And then on top of that, we're required to do a hub search. And if you're not familiar with hubs, I'll go into that in the next slide. But a hub is a historically underutilized business. And it was a program established by the state. I think it was in... Okay, I'm not going to try to quote history here, but several years ago they passed this historically underutilized business program, and it's a free list service. If you fall into any of the minority categories as a business, or you're a woman-owned business, or some of these other components, you can register with the state to become a hub vendor, and they'll put you on this hub list, which the state comptroller's office manages. And so my office has to go out every time we're doing a purchase in that $3,000 to $50,000 category, and we look at NIGP codes, which are, NICS codes, thank you. We're looking at the codes that you guys use for your companies that supply all of that. So, whatever you're registered at, we'll search based off of those codes, and we'll come back and if you're on that list, then you have to get a call. They have to pick 3, but 2 of them have to be hub searches. So, and anything that falls in that $3,000 to $50,000 range, the departments do have to coordinate with my office to make sure that they did meet those minimum requirements. So my office requests a copy of the 3 quotes, a copy of the hub search, and we help the departments facilitate all those, but it's a great avenue. And then, like I said, we have our purchases that happen over $50,000. And those have their own set of requirements. So that's where we require a formal solicitation. So that means we have to advertise in the news, in the paper, and on our portal for at least 14 days before a solicitation is able to close. Our internal policies, we try to keep them open for 30 days. We feel like that's the industry standard, and that's the kind of the best window, because there are some people that only check postings once a month. And so we feel that 30-day window hopefully catches us the largest number of groups or applicants that can come in. And then the other component of that is, so we'll go out, we'll do a procurement, the bids will come back, but then we still have to then take it to city council for validation. So there is sometimes a lead time where you guys, to give you an idea, the average solicitation takes anywhere from 60 to 90 days. And 30 of it are the actual solicitation. There's a little bit of work that happens prior to us releasing it. And then it takes us a little bit of time to be able to get on city council's agenda. And in order to get that reviewed and then placed on the agenda, we're talking about usually about another 30 or 45 days there. So that's kind of the typical window. So you may have gotten a call, you might have been part of a bid opening, wow, I'm the low bidder, this is great. And then you're like, okay, why haven't I gotten a contract? Why haven't I gotten the contract yet? Or why hasn't this gone to city council? I just want you to know it's a process. And if I could make it faster, I would. And we are constantly looking to innovate that, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that's kind of what happens. So again, if you go to the comptroller's website, texas.gov/purchasing vendor hub, that is the vendor list if you'd like to register as a historically underutilized business. Like I said, the state purchasing requirement is like that for every municipality across the state. So if you are a hub vendor or could become a hub vendor, it's very advantageous to you because you're going to get a lot of exposure, because any purchase done over $3,000 up to 50 is going to have to go through that search catalog that's housed by the comptroller. So then, of course, we have some exceptions or exemptions. And so I want to talk a little bit about these because there are a lot of rules that govern all these things. So we have what I call general exemptions. And so if we're dealing in the time of crisis, emergency, we had a failure, a pipe break, the natural freeze disaster that comes in, there are statutory rules that allow us to exempt ourselves from their own requirements in the event of public health and safety, unforeseen damage. There are different things there. Professional services is also one of those categories where we can exempt ourselves from a procurement, but our city council has asked us to procure anything that comes in over 50,000. So we may still release, you know, if you're familiar with Texas law, you may say, well, why are you soliciting that? You don't have to. We want to. That's our council policy to do that. We also have sole source. If you guys are a patent holder, a copyright holder, you got a secret process, you do something better than anybody else, a natural monopoly, you know, there are exemptions where some of these rules don't apply. Now, again, the kind of the one rule that's going to apply to everything, exemption or no, is that if it's over $50,000, it's got to go for council action. So you're always going to look at a 45 or 90-day window, regardless of whether or not it's solicited or it fell into an exempted category. And then utilities have certain exemptions that are available to them, and street maintenance and some of those other components. So I tell you all of this because every solicitation is going to be a little different, and it's just the nature of the government beast. But I want you all to be aware of kind of the decision-making factors that go behind it. So let's talk about our different procurement methods. So we can kind of boil it down into four major categories. We have what I call our RFPQ, which is our request for price quote. And so this is where anything under $50,000 that's going to be procured is going to be done as an RFPQ. And all of these terms, we try to put parentheses around them, and we spell them out in all of our solicitations. But I just want you to be familiar with the lingo because government loves acronyms. Just ask the FBI. And then we also have our RFPQs, they're physical or digital. We can email you. You know, we recognize businesses are all not moving away from paper. And so we can email you and say, hey, can you send us a quote? And it can be a digital quote. We don't have to have a physical one on company letterhead that says this is the quote. We can take the digital quote. We typically do need an itemized breakout, but they're not sealed. If it's under $50,000, they're not sealed. This is just a price quote. It's not a bid. It's a price quote. And then we have our RFBs. So these are a little bit more formal. And so these are publicly advertised. We prefer digital content. We, too, are trying to get away from paper, trying to get away from killing trees. But the state tells us we can't tell you that we can't take paper copies. And so I want to make that plug right now because we'll take a paper copy if that's how your business operates and that's what you want to do. But we prefer a digital version of your bid. And again, it needs to be itemized, but these are sealed, and the bid opening will be part of the solicitation, and it's going to be we typically do WebExes now. We do allow in-person attendance for most of our bid openings, weather permitting, and who knows what the next COVID situation or something like that might change, but right now we allow for all of that, and so you could jump on the computer and you can view the bid opening and understand where everything laid. Our RFQs are our requests for qualifications. This is where we're procuring usually some sort of professional service or service. And we say, this is where you need to tell the city what makes you qualified. How are you the most qualified to do this job? What makes you a leader in this industry? What kind of institutional knowledge do you have? So even though the state tells my department that professional services cannot have local preference applied to them, well, those covered under the Professional Service Act of Texas is what I should say. We recognize the need for local experience and local knowledge. And so in the criteria that we build into our solicitations, we ask for details like how familiar are you with the area, with the streets, with the park, whatever it is. We try to build that criteria in to make sure we get that extra point, those extra points to our local businesses because it's important to us. And then we have our requests for proposals or RFPs. And so this is where we typically have a less defined scope where we kind of know what outcome we want, but we don't know how we want to get there. And so we'll open it up to vendors to provide a solution to our problem and come back with a proposal of this is how I think you should do it in order to achieve the outcome you're requesting. And so those are RFPs. So what kind of documentation does the city provide when we're engaging with businesses? Well, it's usually contracts, but contracts can come in a number of different forms. So we have our supply agreements or our service agreements, which are still contracts, but they're going to say on the item that they're a service agreement or a contractual, or a supply agreement. And then we have like a full-fledged contract. Those are available. We use those in certain cases. But most of the time with the purchases, we're using what we call purchase orders. Purchase orders still have terms and conditions, but we issue those on most of the procurements under $50,000. Now, I want to keep saying that because we do a lot of purchases over $50,000. But it's usually about a 70-30, that 30% of the solicitations we do are over $50,000, 70% of it is less. Because there are a significant amount of smaller purchases that are made across the city than there are larger purchases. But we want you guys engaged in all of these. The city does have some insurance and bonding requirement. This is not, it's a two-way street. You guys can talk to us about it. We kind of have some built-in requirements from our risk department and the legal department. But when you guys want to partake in a solicitation, if you have questions about those, during the solicitation period, you can ask questions. And any answer that we provide to you, we'll be sure to post on the supplier portal so that everybody who's wanting to partake in the solicitation can get access to that answer. But we can talk about what barriers you have or what you need for us or why that requirement may be. But it is important to mention that it is something that we typically ask for depending on the type of service, or usually doesn't happen too much with supply agreements unless you guys are bringing it on site yourselves. So let's talk about the supplier portal. Supplier portal, a gateway to the city's money. No, I'm just kidding. The gateway to doing business with the city. So my supplier portal is been recently upgraded. And so if any of you are familiar with the process, it's going to look a little different. It's going to function very similarly, but we did go through a citywide software upgrade that took us to a cloud host. You don't need to know all this, but it's prettier now, and it works better. So our supplier portal, and I'll be plugging the link in a minute, and it should be in all of your packets. So sorry. There. Put it in your packets, but this is where you go. This is where the business happens. So we need you to register. That's where you put in your commodity codes. You list what types of services or goods you want. And then you guys, it's very user-friendly. You get the chance to ask how often do you want to receive notices of solicitations? Do you want it for everything that comes through that hits your commodity codes? Do you only want it on items at a specific dollar value? Do you want to be notified only once a month about the ones that are being entered in the system, or do you want frequent on-the-fly emails? So the portal's come a long way, but it gives you direct access to, like I said, the work that's being solicited or the products or services that are being solicited. So I definitely recommend, if you take nothing else from this, at least go sign up on our website so that you can get access to the solicitations come out. Now, if you're having problems with that, that's where my partners over at the Apex Accelerators, Apex Accelerator at Del Mar are going to help us with this. So here's the website, cctexas.com/services/general-government/purchasing. Not a mouthful at all. We're working on that, okay? I want it to just be cctexas.com/purchasing, but we're not there yet. So please sign up at the supplier portal. We look forward to doing business with you. I think I've got just one or two more slides, and then we'll turn this over to some questions if you guys want to ask questions here. Or if you want to hold your questions, like I said, we're going to turn this into a workshop afterwards, and we're going to have like all my department representatives, I'll stay up towards the front here. I'd be happy to engage with any of you who have questions about the process or kind of one of the things we go through. So don't forget, if you came in late and you didn't get a vendor packet, or you want another one, or you need one, my procurement table in the back is going to have these new vendor packets, which have, like I said, the detailed nitty-gritty sign-up instructions, and the procurement forecast. Those are the really big items. But before I leave you, I want to just emphasize one more on City Council's commitment to our local businesses and talk about the recently passed City Council Policy number 26, which is our local business preference policy. And what this allows us to do is apply points of local preference on any solicitation. So the solicitations are typically 100 points. And so you get a 10% leg up for being a local business. Now, that does require that you play a substantial role if you're doing a joint partnership or a joint venture. Both entities need to be local in order to achieve all the points. If you're partnering with somebody else and they're out of state or out of firm or out of city, then that won't technically count. But you might be able to get a prorated portion of the points. But in order to get all 10 points, you got to just have your principal place of business here in Corpus Christi. All right, I think that's all I had. Do you guys have any questions now before I turn it over to Delmar, or you guys want to wait for the workshop at the end? Yes, please. So the city does not currently include any of those in our procurement aspect. Our city leadership has been looking at that. Outside of what the state requires us, which is our historically underutilized business program. And so, like I said, on every purchase made $50,000 and below, we have to go out to the hub. You have to do a hub search based off those commodity codes. And if your business is listed on that, then you're going to get a call. You're going to get quoted. We've got a couple councilmen who are looking at doing we're talking about doing a disparity study and trying to incorporate more of those, but it's quite a bit more planning involved. We don't want to do it wrong, so we're working on that. Yes, sir. I will make sure we put it on the website. Absolutely. The question was, will the presentation be available online? I will make sure it will. I'll also give it to Delmar to make sure that they email it out to everybody who maybe heard about it through their channels. Also make sure that our communication team maybe gets the slide deck posted up on the Facebook page if that's where you heard about us.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I was just looking in the wrong place. I just barely found information on how to attend to somebody that was interested and couldn't make it. Sent me the information, and I requested some time off because, of course, it's still a work day. So,
Yeah, we've done our best through our. The question was, some people may have heard about this last minute, want to make sure they get access to the slide deck. So I'll do my best. I can take individual business cards and make sure I email that out if you didn't come through the conventional channels. And we're working. This is probably the most successful one we've had post-COVID. So like I said, we're very excited about the turnout, and we'll do a better job of trying to get this out. Like I said, on our messaging out. KIII really helped us out this time around. I think they did some advertising for us that helped us get the word out on this event, and so we're excited about that.
How about the Black Chamber? So you send us information, we post it on our website.
That's perfect. She's from the Black Chambers, so we'll get her the information too, so it can be posted there, as well as the other Chamber of Commerce, and then we'll get it posted through, like I said, through Delmar and our website.
Josh?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned points. What are the points and what do they mean to the people that are actually involved in this?
Certainly. So when we're doing a solicitation for, we're going to pick a service. So let's just say it's pressure washing. So if we're doing a solicitation for pressure washing, the way that we have to procure it is typically through either, I guess pressure washing is not a great example, but let's just say, let's say it's another service. What we're going to do is we're going to build criteria. How many projects of this size have you done before? What is how many times have you had an injury in the past 6 months? There are going to be criteria that are built into the solicitation, and they're going to be published. You're going to know upfront what we're grading. There's no secrets. Like, that's part of our federal and state requirements to make sure that our solicitation tells you what you're being graded on. So you know right up front whether or not you're interested in partaking. And then on top of all of those criteria, we have 10 points set aside that are only going to be available to local businesses. So everybody else is getting graded off 90 points, but you guys are going to get graded off, my local businesses are going to get graded off 100 points. Yes, ma'am.
That's based on the local preference criteria. So you have the criteria so that we will see.
Yes. Every solicitation, if it's allowable, it is our policy to include it. There, again, the color of money sometimes can affect whether or not we're able to include local preference. If it's federally funded, I'll give you 1 second, federally funded, or if it's funded through the state, sometimes they don't allow us to apply our preferences because it's their money or their pass-through money. But if it's eligible, my procurement office is going to have it on 100% of the solicitations it's available on. And so when you're looking at the criteria posted, it will be clearly stated that this one has local preference, and there will be those 10 points set aside. Yes?
Also, they would also have, if it's state preference, they would have a hub goal on there, and also federal goal would be on that as well.
Correct. Whatever the governing body will be, will dictate those rules, and we'll try to include that information in every one of the solicitations.
Just for clarification, that local ordinance number 26, I thought it said for professional services.
Well, that's where I struggle to explain this because it's a little bit loophole here. So most services are considered professional services, most services, because there's usually some sort of certification, special knowledge, special training, but there are professional services that are restricted, so that's my architects, engineers, anything that's covered by the Professional Services Act of Texas, but it's very narrow. There's only, I think, like six categories of professional services that say if we're going to procure those 6, we cannot use local preference at all, regardless of what our local policy states. So I tried not to get into, so your focus is on the solicitation because it'll be very clear up front whether or not those points are available to you on every one of our posted solicitations.
So I guess my question is still, I understand that the Professional Services Act, but are we talking about a local business, let's say a painting company or something? You're going to assign.
So on service contracts, so council's newest policy was specifically on the professional services.
Did they define professional services?
They did not. They allowed my office to make that determination based off of what the federal and state laws allow us to do, but it gives us some flexibility in that. That's why they kept it broad, so that we could apply it as generously to services as possible, because when we started to get into how do we detail that for the ordinance, we didn't want to narrow it down and exclude something that we would have been more happy to use local businesses on. So that was strategic, although I know it sounds loose, but I promise we're trying to apply it to everything. All right, if I don't have any more questions, I'd like to turn it over to Del Mar College Apex Accelerators. This is Bob. I'll let him get up. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, well, a couple of things that I wanted to mention before I get started. My name is Robert Mirabal. I'm the program manager with Del Mar College Apex Accelerator. One thing I did want to mention is in the event that some of you did not get a packet, I went to the supplier portal this morning and I printed out the forecast of the purchases that the city will be making that is on the supplier portal. So in the event that some of you did not get that, we've got them at our table in the back, so I'm going to encourage you to go back there and get it. But that also illustrates the power of the supplier portal. Okay, so there's really a lot of good information on there. I also happen to look for solicitations, which they call events, and there were almost 3 pages of them. So you do need to go out there and look at it. The other thing I wanted to mention is as far as getting the copies of the slides and presentations today, Del Mar College will be more than happy to send those out to you. The best way to ensure that you get them is to be sure to sign in. So if you, for some reason, tried to skip the line when you came into the room, thinking that, oh, I want to get a seat and I want to get in there early, before you leave, try to make an effort to go back out and sign in. And the other thing I'd like to tell people is, please make sure we can read your handwriting, okay? Sometimes I'll have people sign in and I'm like, I'll go to the office later on when I'm done and I'll look around and say, what in the world is that? So I guarantee you, those of you that registered online with us, no problem. I think when we left this morning, we had like 96 people registered online. So those we can read, okay, because they're typed in. But those of you that sign in here, maybe make sure that it was legible and we'll go back and do that. So, you know, when Josh said a couple of things that kind of struck my ear, but one of the things he said is that the government loves acronyms, okay? Well, the government does love acronyms. As of January 1st, we were known as Del Mar College PTAC. Well, PTAC is an acronym. PTAC stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center, right? Well, the DOD changed our name effective January 1st and said, now you're going to be called, nationwide, the program is going to be called Apex Accelerators. So our official name now is Del Mar College Apex Accelerator. So our first question when we had a conference in November in DC, and our program lead from the Pentagon came over, and there was like 400 of us in the room, and they were real tight-lipped about our name. We had no idea what our name was going to be. We just knew that it was going to change. So up on the screen, they popped up the logo that said Apex Accelerators, right? And all everybody did for the first like 30 seconds to a minute is look at each other and say, what does Apex stand for, right? And there was silence in the room, and somebody raised up their hand and said, what does Apex stand for? The director says, it doesn't stand for anything. It's a word, apex, and it means the summit or the highest point or the peak of an object or a program. So that is what apex stands for. So, you know, it's kind of like an inside joke, but the government does love acronyms. So, and let me just give you a really short background about the name change and what happened, and I promise I won't keep you that long, but I kind of want some of you to understand what's going on. Over the last 10 years, the federal government has done a study. So over the last generation, the federal government has done a study, and they've come to the conclusion that there's 40% fewer vendors engaging in commerce or contracts at the federal level. 40% in a 10-year period, that's a lot. That's major. So what they did was they took a good hard look at the PTAC program and the federal government. They said, you know what, we can utilize the PTAC program to help us build that client base back. And so what they did was they kind of took us out of one federal agency that we were under, and they put us directly under the Office for the Secretary of Defense, which gave us several layers of upward vertical mobility. So, and then they say, with their ultimate wisdom, which, hey, I don't disagree with, they basically said, you know what, we're going to use the PTAC program, we're going to rename them to Apex, and we're going to use this program to help us establish a resilient, diverse supply chain to help us shore up the number of vendors engaging in government contracting. So the good thing for the Apex program and the PTAC program is we've always been engaged in all levels of government contracting. So it's city, county, state, and federal. So that's good news to all of you, because now our mission is kind of focused, pinpoint on helping to build a reliable supply chain. And that includes one of the reasons we're here with the City of Corpus Christi, because they are a local governmental agency, and so we're fully equipped to help them build up their database, their number of vendors doing business with them. And I may happen to use Apex and PTAC back and forth because I've been conditioned over the last 10 years plus to say PTAC, and now I'm starting to have to say Apex Accelerator, so if I go back and forth, forgive me. But the program was established in 1981 by an act of Congress. In 1986, it came to Corpus Christi, and in 1996, it was actually affiliated with Del Mar College. And again, our mission was to help assist businesses in all levels of contracting. There's approximately 300 Apex offices throughout the country, and there's about 95 to 98 centers. We're in all the states, including Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Mariana Islands. And so one of the main things that we do is we offer no cost, confidential, advising to anything government contract related. We primarily help also with registrations and certifications. One of the registrations that we will be more than happy to help you with, as mentioned today, is the supplier portal. If you have any difficulty navigating that system, registering, it's going to ask you for your NIGP codes. It's going to ask you for any information. If you have trouble finding what your codes are, whether or not they apply to your business, you know, our full entire team is here. We're in the back. Talk to any one of us. We can help you one-on-one, confidentially, either in our offices, online, or at your place. It doesn't matter. We'll help you one way or the other, and we'll make sure that we demystify the supplier portal registration process. In addition to that, you heard mentioned Texas Hub certification, right? You heard that being mentioned. We also help businesses, if they're eligible, apply for certifications for which they would help them engage in government contracting. Because all the government levels, regardless what it is, they have kind of like a responsibility or duty to make an effort to spend some contracting dollars, a good faith effort to spend contracting dollars with small certified firms. So they're different. The state is different from the federal government, but a lot of them have specific certifications. Texas only has one, and we refer to that as Texas Hub because there is a hub zone, which has nothing to do with Texas Hub. Hub zone is federal, Texas Hub is state. So we're fully versed in that. We've helped, I don't know how many, we help like, I think 60% of probably all of our 400 clients that we see throughout a year are interested in Texas Hub and actually qualify for that. So we can help you with that as well. We have a plan room that we're also able to print out plans on construction projects for a really low price because we're a nonprofit. We're able to print out plans for $1 a sheet for the big 2-foot by 3-foot plans. So we offer that, and our plan room keeps extremely busy. We produce on the average of about 7,000 plan sheets a year. So if you're a construction company or even an architectural firm and you need that service, we have that there. We also put out, our plan room also puts out a weekly construction list of all construction and other, we recently expanded that to other services. So we put out a weekly list that has a lot of the open solicitations in the area that we serve. We're not limited to Corpus Christi. We serve a 14-county area. Yes, our home base is here in Corpus Christi. Our facilities are at Del Mar College on the corner of Staples and Castores, but we do outreach and we do serve 14 counties. So we do put out that bid list every single week to people who register with us as a client. Give us your email that I can read or that we can read, and we'll send you out that list. We provide access once in a while to government agencies or agents, such as what we're doing today, along with networking opportunities, which we're doing today. And we also do about 50+ training seminars a year. One thing that I'm really proud of is the impact, the economic impact that our center is able to contribute to our area. You know, we see approximately 235 clients a year, plus or minus. We do over 2,300 hours of counseling. And remember, all of our counseling is no cost and confidential, so you can rest assured whatever we discuss stays within us. We had 52 events last year. These are all 2022 numbers. We had 52 events in which we had over 1,600 attendees. Now, they were not all in person because we're also involved in the virtual network. So some of these were webinars. But one of the goals or one of the achievements that our center made that I'm extremely proud of, and our team should be extremely proud of, is the fact that our clients won over almost $257 million worth of contracts in these 14 county areas that we serve. The Department of Labor gives us a number of a full-time job equaling $50,000. Well, if you do the math, that means that we've created, or our clients have created or retained over 5,138 jobs. So that's about almost 100 a week. And that's very, very good because although it feels great for us to know that we helped, we're not the ones that really benefited. You guys did. Our clients did. You guys are able to keep your businesses running, win more contracts. And all I can tell you is this: the government is buying all the time. Like Josh said, they don't make anything, they don't produce anything. They buy everything, and they're buying actively. These are all just 2022 numbers. They're buying actively. They bought last year, and I'm seeing the same trend this year. So it's very important that you're here. It's very important that you realize this. And for those of you that aren't active in contracting right now, it's time for you to get a piece of the pie, okay? So, but you need to do your due diligence. You need to work with whomever you need to, and you need to, when you submit bids, you need to be sure that they're responsive and responsible. And if you don't, I don't expect you to know necessarily what those terms mean, but ask us afterwards and we'll help you. Up here is just our information for the Del Mar College Apex Accelerator contacts, our staff there. We're all here. Some are outside, some are inside, but we're all around here. If you need any assistance whatsoever, either applying for Texas Hub or the supplier portal, figuring out your NIGP codes, whatever it is, we can help you with any of that. And of course, we can also help if you later on down the road, as you grow your business, you want to get into state level contracting, federal contracting, county, or the other. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, we're actually we work under a cooperative agreement with the Department of Defense, Del Mar College. We get some funding from the City of Corpus Christi Type B Board, and our plan room is greatly underwritten by the Corpus Christi Regional Transportation Authority. So these are all your tax dollars at work. So I want to, those of you that are current PTAC client or Apex clients, I want to thank you for your patronage, and those of you that aren't, that don't know about us, give us a call. You know, we're more than happy to help. And after today's session, if you need any personal one-on-one, be sure and stop any one of us, and we'll give you your information. And don't forget to make sure you signed in, because that's the way you can guarantee you get these slides, okay?
Small Business Development Center at Del Mar.
Yes.
Is this program in any way associated with that?
Very good question. I forgot to mention that. We're housed in the same area as our SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. The Apex Accelerator, we specialize in government contracting. I'd like to say they do everything else. They'll help you with marketing, accounting, business plans, loan preparation. Matter of fact, there's several of them in the back right there. My director, Amphirova, is there. Vicky is there. I think I saw Lucy there. So they're also in the room. So you can probably hunt them down. But
Some of the names up there, and I'm like, you know.
Yeah. We also have the CRC Center, the Contractor Resource Center, that basically does what Apex does, but on the commercial side. See, we're specific. We can only do government contracting. They do commercial, and that's about it. So I won't take any more time, because the reason you're here is to talk to the buyers, okay? So I'll stop there. If you have any further questions for me, just stop me. I'll be around somewhere.
Thank you.